In 2005, two senior college students, Steve Huffman and Alexis Ohanian, came up with a business idea. The two were college roommates, with Steve studying computer science and Alexis majoring in business and history. Their idea was to create an online service that would allow customers to pre-order food from restaurants called My Mobile Menu. After going to a lecture by influential entrepreneur Paul Graham, they met up with him privately and pitched him the idea. Quote, "Let's hear it," Paul said to Alexis and Steve after they sat down for coffee. It turned out to be My Mobile Menu, a menu app that would let users place orders at restaurants ahead of time. Paul liked the idea and later invited the duo to come back and pitch it formally at his new program, Y Combinator. They assumed it was pretty much a done deal, their ticket to building a real company. Seth Feigerman writes for Mashable. But the two soon faced concern about their idea, with many at Y Combinator expressing reservations due to the limited accessibility of apps and smartphones at the time. It was 2005 after all. Nevertheless, Graham saw potential in Steve and Alexis. He suggested they pivot from mobile to browsers. In a meeting, quote, "They talked about frustrations with sifting through noise on websites like Slashdot, a tech news site, and Delicious, a social bookmarking service," Feigerman continues for Mashable. Then they turned their attention to the popular section of Delicious, which collected the most bookmarked links. They thought there was something more to be done with that. What the internet needed was a website that highlighted the most shared links, not just the most bookmarked links, making it easier for users to discover the content. And so the idea was born. This is the story of Reddit, the internet's greatest example of how a website can attract millions of users every single day with no idea how to turn a devoted community into a viable business model. For Centennial World, I'm Lauren Meisner, and this is Infinite Scroll, a podcast about internet culture, the creator economy, and how social media is shaping Gen Z. Welcome back to Infinite Scroll, everyone. Please, I'm so sorry. Forgive me that I didn't have an episode last week. It's been a crazy couple of weeks, and one day I will tell you the story of everything that happened these last couple of weeks. But please know it wasn't just, because I didn't want to bring you guys an episode. There was a real reason for it. But I am back. I am ready. Everything is all good now. And I am so excited to talk about Reddit with you guys today. But as always, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. It helps me so much. It helps me grow. It helps me keep going. Please sign up to our newsletter, which is also called Infinite Scroll. On Fridays, we round up the 5 biggest think pieces on the internet that week. And join our Geneva group, also called Infinite Scroll, where you can chat with other people who are obsessed with internet culture and creator drama and tea, and you can chat with me. Okay, I have 2 reviews that I wanted to read today. I love when I get your reviews, especially because these last couple of weeks, like I said, were so wild. So it just brought me solace to know that you guys are loving my content and that we're going to keep going. Okay, so Rosetta from the US says, "I love the new format. This is one of the first podcasts I ever listened to." Oh my God. That is so sweet. And can I just say it's amazing. For someone who is trying to stay away from social media, I love to listen to this podcast to know what's going on. Lauren is such a great host, and I feel like the podcast isn't too oversaturated with information. I find myself wanting to listen to more each and every day. Thank you so much, Rosetta. That is so sweet. And then I got this DM that I wanted to read from Emma. So she said, "I just gave a 5-star review on Spotify, but I'm a loser who couldn't figure out how to provide text with a review, so sending this instead." Okay, so the way that you send a Spotify review, for anyone that doesn't know, it's not like an official written review. So you can star rate, obviously, but then also under each episode, it will ask a question like, "What did you think of this episode?" or something like that. It's like Q&A section. And that's where people are quote unquote leaving us reviews. It's on individual episodes. Anyway, she said, "Hi, Lauren. Just wanted to say how much I love the podcast. I've been listening for a while. I just discovered Infinite Scroll about a year ago and very quickly binged the whole back catalog." No, you guys know that's my worst nightmare. Lately, I've absolutely been adoring the new format of the show. I really look forward to the deep dives, and I love mini scroll so much. I try to save it for the start of my commute home from the office each evening, but sometimes I can't wait and have to listen before then. Oh my God. Thank you. The breadth of topics, research, and analysis is so intelligent and fascinating. And while I listen to a lot of podcasts that discuss internet culture, Infinite Scroll is by far my favorite. I so appreciate having a space to think about all the best chronically online girly things that get overlooked elsewhere. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to keep listening. Oh my God, you guys, I can't. You are so sweet. Thank you so much. Upon creating the idea of Reddit, Steve and Alexis were granted $12,000 to get that project off the ground, and the platform was officially launched on June 23, 2005. Reddit was initially marketed as the front page of the internet, designed for users to share top articles from major news outlets and websites, providing a centralized platform to access a wide range of content without the need to visit each site individually. This strategy led to a popularity-based algorithm that many of us have come to associate with Reddit through the upvote and downvote feature. Quote, "This is a key way that Reddit differs from other social media and news aggregation sites. It instructs users not to indicate whether they like or dislike content, but whether it should be promoted or demoted in the context of a discussion," Allison Eldridge writes for the Encyclopedia Britannica. But for this type of algorithm and platform to thrive, Reddit needed users, and getting them on board was a struggle at first. In the weeks after launching, Steve and Alexis created fake accounts to post on Reddit so that the website looked active. Quote, "Sometime in August, Steve went nearly a day without working on Reddit, a rarity for him. Before going to bed that night, he finally thought to check the site and noticed there was new content on the front page that hadn't been posted by him or Alexis. That," he says, quote, "was the biggest turning point," Feigerman writes for Mashable. While Reddit was slowly building its user base, it would take a while before it would become a genuine competitor to other aggregator sites like Slashdot and Delicious. One website named Dig was perhaps Reddit's most direct competitor. Dig actually predates Reddit, launching at the end of 2004. It shared a similar concept to Reddit, featuring a list of links that users could either, quote, "dig" or bury. At the time, Dig was an internet darling, boasting some of the most impressive traffic numbers for a tech startup. At its peak, quote, Dig's traffic, according to Comscore data, climbed to 29.1 million unique monthly visitors in January 2010, Rachel Metz writes for MIT Technology Review. While Dig was more successful in its early years, Steve and Alexis continued working on the platform, bringing on other members of the team, including Christopher Slow and Aaron Swartz. Both were participants in the Y Combinator program, where Swartz even agreed to merge his company, Infogamy, with Reddit. Infogamy was a platform for building websites. Swartz merged his company with Reddit to assist the founders with their site in exchange for their help with his own projects. These four were the only employees of Reddit until it was acquired by Condé Nast the following year in 2006. In the same Mashable article, Feigerman notes that the desire to sell Reddit arose from fears of the platform failing and the founders potentially missing out on the rewards of their hard work. According to Feigerman, Steve said, quote, "Dig was kicking our asses. There were a bazillion other sites doing what we were doing. Me, Alexis, and Paul came to the conclusion that we should sell this thing before we're dead. Let's get some money out of this thing before it falls apart." Condé Nast ended up acquiring Reddit for $10 million in October 2006, a fraction of what Reddit is worth today. Looking back on the acquisition now, Alexis has spoken about how the deal was a mistake. Quote, "The deal was months in the making, and I wish I'd had more advisors around the table giving me more perspective on the sale. I thought I was getting away with something because for 16 months of work, I was getting more money than my parents had made their entire working lives," he shared via X in 2020. "I wish I'd had an investor tell me there were other options, like raising a Series A, and there would be a path to much greater things given how fast the audience was growing at the time when our engineers had basically stopped working on the product." After the acquisition, the Reddit team moved from San Francisco to Boston to continue working on the site. This did lead to some tension among the team, where Swartz was opposed to the acquisition from the get-go, saying that he didn't want to work for a corporation. Swartz later departed Reddit in 2007. While the acquisition was indicative of Reddit's potential for success, a TechCrunch article from the time highlights how Reddit was simultaneously lagging behind other similar platforms. Quote, "Reddit is a social news site that has always played second fiddle to Dig, although Reddit does have an active and loyal user base. Users praise Reddit for having a very quick load time and no advertising. Like Dig, news stories on Reddit are submitted by users, and other users upvote or downvote their story," Michael Arrington writes. 3 years after the acquisition, Steve and Alexis announced that they would be leaving the company. Quote, "The news doesn't come as a huge surprise," Jason Kincaid wrote for TechCrunch at the time. "It will still have been 3 years to the day that Condé Nast acquired Reddit, and the founders likely had a 3-year contract as part of the deal." Reddit's post notes that while co-founders founder Chris Slow's contract also expired, he'll be staying on board. Slow eventually did end up leaving in 2010. It's clear that for a long time, Reddit was not anticipated to succeed, especially when compared to its competitors. But eventually, Reddit began differentiating itself, catching its competitors like Dig by surprise. This first started when Reddit started prioritizing discussion through an engaged user base. Reddit added the ability to comment on posts as early as 2005, with the platform later introducing subreddits in 2008. These topic-specific threads have become a staple of today's internet. According to Feigerman, Owen Brine, the developer who built Dig's original website, said that, quote, subreddits was a feature that made them beat us. On top of this, Dig's failure did partially pave the way for Reddit's success. Back in 2010, Dig released an updated version of the platform known as Dig v4. Dig had undergone several redesigns previously, with v4 primarily aimed at making the platform more quote-unquote social, following the lead of other platforms like Twitter and Facebook. Quote, Dig v4 is the increased emphasis on social. When you first sign in, you'll be walked through a flow inviting you to begin following other users, both from a series of lists curated by Dig and from friends on your Facebook, Twitter, and Google accounts, which you can easily connect with, Jason Kincaid writes for TechCrunch. The update also allowed publishers to have their stories submitted automatically, diminishing the influence of users who previously submitted links. Additionally, the bury option was also removed, which had given users some control over what appeared on the homepage. While this feature was sometimes misused to suppress differing viewpoints, its removal further reduced user control over content. V4 also introduced a section on site called, quote, My News that would recommend stories based on a user's friends and who they followed. Of the My News page, Josh Lowenson writes for CNET, this page, instead of the site's top news section, became the default, and one of the big reasons many longtime Dig users grew unhappy with the site and its new direction. With this update, Dig imploded. Many users migrated to competitor sites, particularly Reddit. On August 30th, 2010, Dig users staged a revolt known as Quit Dig Day, during which they voted up all links automatically submitted by Reddit through RSS. This caused Dig's front page to be dominated by links to Reddit. While many users did head over to Reddit after Dig v4 dropped, it didn't necessarily cement Reddit's place in the online world. As Feigerman writes for Mashable, quote, Dig's demise may have shifted how the media thought about Reddit, but it didn't have much impact on the company itself. Reddit received a burst of new users for the first couple days after, but that was short-lived. Traffic seemed to double on Reddit every year before Dig and would continue to do so after Dig's redesign. There was no single defining Reddit moment, employees say. Traffic just kept growing. During this time, Reddit was still under Condé Nast. While they didn't receive as much backlash as Dig, they did have problems. Quote, the people-powered site struggled to fit in at Condé, a magazine publishing powerhouse. Reddit often fought protracted battles to get resources needed to grow, as it simultaneously sought to make more revenue from its infamously ad-adverse community, Ryan Signal writes for Wired. In 2011, Reddit became operationally independent from Condé Nast as a wholly owned subsidiary called Reddit Inc., allowing the site to be more open to outside investment. Reddit Inc. remained wholly owned by Advanced Media, the parent company of Condé Nast. With this change, Reddit had the freedom to hire a CEO, select a sales team, and chart its own course to profitability. Alexis returned to the company as a member on the board, alongside Condé Nast president Bob Sauerberg and CTO Joe Simon. Yashan Wang became CEO in 2012. He ultimately resigned in 2014, citing disagreements over relocating the company as well as, quote, the stress and draining nature of the role. Many people, including Alexis, credit Wang with driving the company's success as its user base grew from 35 million to 174 million during his tenure. While Reddit was on an upward trajectory during this period, the platform found itself in a number of controversies, with many boiling down to the platform's issues around anonymity and moderation. Reddit found success by allowing anonymity and pseudonyms. However, this anonymity, much like that on Tumblr and MySpace, proved to be a double-edged sword. In the era where brands and platforms often collect user data, Reddit's approach offered a refreshing change for many, allowing users to limit sharing their personal information. moderation. This anonymity also gave users the confidence to engage with subreddits and share stories that they might not otherwise. One study titled "The Language of LGBTQ+ Minority Stress Experiences on Social Media" explored how LGBTQ+ individuals could have safe, candid, and semi-anonymous discussions about their struggles and experiences on various subreddits. In 2018, Steve Huffman spoke about the anonymity at Reddit at the Aspen Ideas Festival, arguing that, quote, anonymity on Reddit actually makes using the site more like a conversation one has in real life than other sites on the internet. When people detach from their real-world identities, they can be more authentic, more true to themselves. On the flip side, however, anonymity on the platform can foster discriminatory rhetoric. Now, content is moderated on Reddit, partly by employees and partly by community-specific moderators who are not Reddit employees. These mods are given the power to establish rules for what can and cannot be posted on each subreddit. In general, they will clamp down on uprisings among the general user base, delete harmful comments, inappropriate images, and manage brigades. That is, mass cross-subreddit invasions. Over the years, mods have frequently asked for better moderation tools and communication systems, so they can better track and discipline offenders and trolls, rather than essentially playing a long game of whack-a-mole. Having said that, it's clear that despite Reddit's moderation efforts, toxic communities continue to emerge on the platform. So let's discuss some of the most significant controversies Reddit has faced over the years. While this is not an exhaustive list, these examples highlight recurring issues that have concerned many users and social media pundits over the years as Reddit's cultural capital continues to grow. Under Wong's tenure as CEO, Reddit encountered one of its first mainstream controversies. Following the Boston Marathon bombing on April 15, 2013, internet sleuths quickly attempted to identify the culprit. Users across platforms like Reddit, 4chan, and Twitter discussed theories and scrutinized video evidence of the attack. Redditors on the r/FindBostonBombers subreddit eventually focused on Sunil Tripathi, a student who had been reported missing before the bombings, mistakenly identifying him as the perpetrator. Within hours, hostile commenters began bombarding Sunil's Facebook page, prompting his family to take it down, only fueling speculation on Reddit and Twitter. When the FBI identified the real suspects, it became clear that the online sleuths had wrongly accused Sunil. The moderators on the Find Boston Bombers subreddit deleted posts implicating others, and Reddit's general manager, Eric Martin, issued an apology. Tragically, it was later revealed that Sunil had committed suicide before the bombings even happened. Since then, we have seen this happen time and time again. We only need to cast our minds back to the devastating murder of Gabby Petito to recognize how fictionalizing true crime can compromise ongoing investigations and hurt the victims' families. But the fact that it was on Reddit, a platform that is wrought with moderation issues, only added to the mob mentality that shaped the response to the Boston bombing. The following year, in August 2014, Reddit users began posting naked pictures stolen from Apple iCloud accounts. It was even believed that some of the pictures may have constituted child pornography. Although these pictures originally appeared on 4chan, a subreddit called r/thefappening became the primary hub for sharing these images. As Timothy Lee explains for Vox, quote, Reddit itself doesn't host images, but users would upload the photos to third-party sites and then post links to them in r/thefappening. The subreddit has since been banned from the platform, but not without criticism from free speech purists. Wong's response to the situation drew significant criticism. In a blog post, he shared that users, quote, have the right to choose between right and wrong, good and evil, and that it is your responsibility to do so. Many users believed Wong was more concerned about copyright issues than the victims in the photos. He ultimately resigned in November 2014, and Ellen Peo, who has been consulting with the company on partnerships and strategy, was installed as interim CEO. The r/thefappening is just one of many examples of misogynistic content and violence towards women on Reddit. For instance, deepfake porn rose to viral fame in the r/deepfake subreddit back in 2017. Although Reddit has since banned r/deepfakes and other related subreddits, this has not stopped other online communities from sharing and creating fake celebrity porn. Regardless, it's clear that the manosphere has long found a home on the platform, largely due to its staunch staunch commitment to free speech. It's bad enough that Reddit has facilitated the spread of not safe for work content, but it has also allowed for the spread of misogynistic ideologies. In our recent episode on looksmaxing and its incel origins, we discussed how Reddit previously served as a primary host for incel content. The subreddit r/incels experienced significant growth over the years, expanding from 11 members in 2014 to over 42,000. However, it was shut down in November 2017 for inappropriate content. Its replacement, r/braincells, quickly amassed over 50,000 members before being banned in September 2019. The next major scandal that Reddit faced was the Ask Me Anything Get-In in 2015. The AMAggedon marked a period when hundreds of subreddits were pulled from public view in protest against the firing of one of the platform's most prominent moderators and the company's director of talent. The term AMAggedon is a play on the word Armageddon, replacing the first part with AMA, which stands for Ask Me Anything. Over the years, Reddit has hosted numerous celebrities and public figures who engage directly with users through the AMA format. In 2012, President Barack Obama even hosted an AMA on the platform as part of his presidential campaign strategy. Victoria Taylor was instrumental in managing many of these AMAs. She arranged the interviews, verified the identities of the interviewees, facilitated the Q&A sessions, and helped newcomers navigate the Reddit platform. When news broke that she had been terminated, Reddit moderators responded with vigor. According to coverage from Wired, quote, "Within hours, the moderators of r/I AMA took the subreddit private, effectively shutting it down. That started a cascade of moderators shuttering dozens of subreddits, r/AskReddit, r/Today I Learned, and r/Pics among them. That is still growing, crippling a site with some 160 million users. Many more subreddits, including r/Science, have expressed solidarity with Taylor but remained open. While most of these subreddits were reopened in a day or two, many moderators remained upset with Reddit's management. Alexis, in his position as executive chairman, took, quote, full responsibility for the revolt and admitted the situation was handled poorly. Nevertheless, Peo soon resigned from her position as interim CEO. She was later replaced by Steve Huffman, one of the platform's original founders. While AMAggedon might have been the straw that broke the camel's back, Peo had received criticism for her previous decisions, most notably when Reddit announced the banning of 5 hostile subreddits, including one called r/FatPeopleHate. Many Reddit users claimed this decision limited freedom of speech and was a form of censorship. Of course, Reddit has deplatformed other harmful communities since Peo faced criticism for it in 2015. Many of these have been alt-right groups, like r/Physical Removal, a community of 41,000 people, many who identify as incels, was banned in August 2017 for inciting violence. r/The Donald, which was intended for supporters of US President Donald Trump, was banned in 2020 for frequent rule breaking, antagonizing the company and other communities. But they haven't been all right-wing groups. Another example is Trisha Paytas's Snark subreddit, r/Trishyland. We've done a whole episode on Snark Reddits, but for those who missed it, Snark communities are essentially subreddits where users criticize and discuss celebrities and influencers. The intended purpose, in theory, is to critique and generate discussions about these public figures and their platforms, rather than to insult and incite abuse. Unfortunately, Snark Reddits often cross into harmful territory. Snark communities often seem to go too far, as in bullying, harassment, and doxing, more when the community is dedicated to a single creator rather than a genre of creator. Take Trishyland, for example. r/Trishyland was established in October 2021 after Trisha's falling out with fellow creator Ethan Klein. Trisha and Ethan co-hosted the Frenemies podcast together before Trisha left the show in mid-2021 over a wage dispute, allegedly. Trishyland engaged in vicious attacks against the influencer, which only got worse after she got married and welcomed her first baby. On November 5th, 2022, Trisha posted a YouTube video titled "It's Finally Over, Now I Can Talk About It," where she discussed this ban. Trisha said the community posted incredibly personal information about herself and her husband, Moses Hackman, including which hospital she was planning to give birth at, her doctor's information, details about her family members, and payment records on her property taxes. Trisha said she repeatedly reported the community on Reddit for bullying and harassment, but nothing was ever done.
I'm thankful that Reddit did take something seriously if it's the copyright, because you know what? I do put a lot of work into my videos.
She said of the platform banning the community only after several copyright claims. Now, one of the more recent scandals that Reddit faced was related to the GameStop stock price. Back at the beginning of 2021, the subreddit r/Wall Street Bets, a community for amateur investors who share investing ideas and thoughts, started buying the GameStop stock, aiming to push up the price. For context, GameStop is an American video game, consumer electronic, and gaming merchandise retailer. Quote, GameStop was in dire straits even before the pandemic struck. Its thousands of store locations couldn't compete with the digital marketplace offered by the game consoles and PC titans Steam and Epic Games, writes Wired. The person largely considered responsible for the GameStop controversy was one member of the r/Wall Street's Bet subreddit named Keith Gill. In 2019, he surprised users after posting that he had invested $53K on GameStop shares. At the time, members of the subreddit were confused, questioning why he would invest so much money. Nevertheless, Keith would continue to periodically post about the GameStop stock. At the same time, financial analysts suggested short selling the stock to profit off of it since the price was going down. For those of us who aren't familiar with short selling, Josh Gross reports on X that shorting, for those who don't know, is when you borrow a stock from someone and sell it on the market expecting the price to go down. You eventually buy back the stock at a lower price, return the borrowed shares, and pocket the difference. As for why people started short selling, Gross continued by noting that, quote, the shorts, which are hedge funds like Melvin, were expecting GameStop to go bankrupt and they'd never have to return their shares. As members of the r/Wall Street subreddit realized that the stock was being shorted, something that Keith presumably realized when he invested, they knew if they worked together, they could, quote, screw the shorts over and make a profit doing it, according to Emily Stewart for Vox. So members of the subreddit all started purchasing the share, pushing the price right up. From Business Insider, quote, the retailer's share price grew from just above $4 in January to a closing high of $347.51. This rising of the meme stock in turn became a problem for the companies who were short selling the stock. Quote, if your shorted shares increase in price, then short sellers have to scramble to buy the shares back in order to be able to return the shares to their original owner. This can lead to increased demand for the stock, lower supply, and its price to soar, adds Velvet Winter for ABC. Ultimately, this saga became a way for Redditors to, quote, teach hedge fund traders a lesson. But this didn't come without backlash. The subreddit briefly went private, and Discord shut down the server on its app for a period of time. Keith also took a step back from social media, where his YouTube, X, and Reddit accounts went dormant for 3 years. He also declined different media opportunities. Nevertheless, he started posting again earlier this year, triggering a surge in the GameStop stock, showing just how much power communities on Reddit actually do hold. There is no denying that Reddit has had its fair share of controversies, but the culture on the platform and the rich lore that exists within it has made for an extremely loyal user base. That being said, Reddit seems poised for a promising future, especially when we consider that there are no mainstream platforms quite like it. Reddit has also stayed true to its original style of content, which is more than we can say for most social media platforms these days. That's not to say that Reddit is not rife with discriminatory and harmful content, but it seems from a corporate level at least that the company is trying to ensure inclusivity and diversity moving forward. In 2020, for instance, co-founder Alexis Ohanian stepped down from the Reddit board, requesting that his seat go to a person of color. Of course, this was at the height of the Black Lives Matter movement and protests following the murder of George Floyd in May of that year. Quote, I've resigned as a member of the Reddit board. I have urged them to fill my seat with a Black candidate, and I will use future gains on my Reddit stock to serve the Black community, chiefly to curb racial hate, and I'm starting with a pledge of $1 million to Know Your Rights Camp, Alexis shared on Twitter. Reddit honored Alexis's request, naming Y Combinator CEO Michael Seibel as his replacement on the board of directors. This decision was well received by Reddit users, although many do feel like the platform could definitely do more to curb white nationalism and racism on the platform, but subsequent business decisions have not been met with the same acclaim. Take last year's API controversy, for example. Mid-2023 marked a big shift in Reddit's commercial structure, which had greatly impacted user experience and not necessarily for the better. Considered one of the biggest coordinated online protests in social media's history, users were protesting changes to Reddit's API, the tool that software developers use to access data and create compatible applications with the platform. Quote, with companies such as OpenAI and Google Plus scraping the internet to train large language models, Reddit wants them to pay for its data. Huffman announced in April that Reddit would start charging for its access to API, the gateway through which companies can download all of Reddit's user-generated content, writes Katie Brigham for CNBC. But it's not just tech giants who use Reddit's API. Many popular third-party mobile apps and moderator tools also rely on API access, which was previously free. These third-party apps are largely just alternatives to Reddit's official mobile app, which didn't even exist until 2016. The new terms upped the price of Reddit's API access from May, and these policy changes adversely affected the ecosystem of third-party apps that offered users alternative interfaces to access the platform. According to Christian Seelig at the time, the creator of the widely used third-party app Apollo, Reddit's new API pricing plan would cost approximately $20 million per year, a financially unsustainable price for the company. Many subreddits on the platform decided to go private for 48 hours starting on Monday, June 12th, claiming that these third-party apps improve the user experience. In light of the looming protest, Reddit CEO Steve Huffman acknowledged user concerns on June 10th, but remained steadfast on the policy changes, emphasizing that, quote, Reddit needs to be a self-sustaining business, and to do that, we can no longer subsidize commercial entities that require large-scale data use. This resulted in many of Reddit's most subscribed to communities going dark, leading to widespread outages across the platform. Despite this protest, many of these third-party apps closed down, including beloved Apollo, after 9 years in business. Another notable business decision from Reddit was the platform's decision to go public earlier this year. In May 2024, Reddit officially made its debut on the stock exchange after nearly 20 years in existence. Reddit first launched its IPO plans in 2021. An IPO is essentially when a private company becomes public by selling its shares on the stock exchange. Quote, the unprofitable company was valued at $10 billion at a fundraising round in August 2021, but valuations have swung since then, writes the Wall Street Journal. After the first attempt fizzled, 2024 marked the year that Reddit officially went public. With this, Reddit offered the chance for some of its most active users to become shareholders in the company, where, quote, 75,000 of the platform's Redditors will be able to buy shares at Reddit's IPO price before the stock starts trading, an opportunity generally reserved for money managers, Hope King reports for Axios. The shares debuted at $34 and closed at $59.80, where existing investors raised roughly $750 million combined in the offering. Over the course of its existence, Reddit has never been profitable, largely because of the pushback to invasive advertising, selling user data, and the reluctance of moderators to, quote, turn subreddits into side hustles, writes Business Insider. The decision to go public came as Reddit seeks to expand, highlighted by a significant deal with OpenAI. This agreement provides OpenAI with real-time access to Reddit's data, facilitating the training of ChatGPT and other products. This arrangement reportedly mirrors a previous $60 million deal with Google, which permitted Google to use Reddit posts for training its AI models and improving existing searches, such as Google Search. That being said, with the rise of generative AI, there is speculation that this technology could address Reddit's long-term challenge of being unprofitable. And there is also something to be said about how Google search has changed in recent months. Since the AI boom, internet users have complained that the search function is getting less and less accurate. As a result, many Gen Z users are turning to Reddit for advice and information. With the wealth of information available on the platform, it's clear that Reddit is more than just a community building tool. tool. That being said, Reddit's longevity might just be driven by the amount of information available on the platform. Apart from TikTok, Reddit is one of the few social media platforms where content creators actively share content from this platform to others. A prime example of this is the r/AmITheAsshole subreddit. Launched in 2013, this thread has grown to 18 million members and is one of the most popular subreddits. Users post about various situations and ethical dilemmas, seeking advice and judgment from other users. TikTokers like @love_Lola have made this subreddit their brand, gaining popularity by filming themselves reading Am I the Asshole posts. Similarly, other creators have produced podcast episodes and entire podcast series centered around reading and judging these posts. When we consider just how pervasive this content is, it's clear that Reddit is filling an important gap in the digital world. That brings us to the end of Reddit's story for now. The platform, for all its problems, is still a huge success in the online space. Of all the other platforms that launched in the mid-2000s, Reddit is among a very small handful of those left standing. And though the platform has faced its fair share of struggles, it seems Reddit is more relevant than ever as the digital landscape moves towards the future with AI. Infinite Scroll is a podcast written, produced, and presented by me, Lauren Meisner, for Centennial World. Additional research and reporting is by Annabelle Ben-David. Editing is by Danny Fennick. Thank you so much for listening to Infinite Scroll. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you next week. Bye!